بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه من والاه أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So we have one last topic here and it's called Are You Not the Sum of Your Habits? Inshallah ta'ala, before we make up those habits and rituals, I'd like to move to the next section. I'm going to come back to this so that you get a better idea of what sort of habits you should be having. And then we'll move back to this so that you can decide what are the rituals, what are the habits that you want to start adopting and start implementing, inshallah ta'ala. So we go to the third section, the third and final section. How do you get there? So if you remember back when we were on the map, we've dealt with where are you now? Okay, so yesterday we were speaking about the emotions, the reconciliation between money, wanting more money. What does Islam teach about it? Things like that. And then we discussed where do you want to go. We got specifics, right, with exact number figures down to the dollars of what we want and what specifically it costs, like how much specifically that it costs. So now between those two things, now you know what you're dealing with now, and now you need, how much income you need extra to get to your dreams. Now, inshallah ta'ala, we'll discuss how to get between point A to point B, which is the directions, and brings it all together, inshallah. So the first topic is, where does zakah come from? Where does zakah come from? After I took this wealth mastery seminars and so on, I went to Al-Maghrib Institute and I decided to teach zakah. And the purpose of teaching zakah, I wanted to see what does Islam speak about this money issue and what can I learn from Islam's perspective, something that the non-Muslims don't have access to or they don't learn it. And when you actually go and teach zakah, you learn things that normally you wouldn't know otherwise. So here's something that I learned about zakah that was something so amazing. Basically, you have, and I'm going to put this diagram in another way afterwards, but just let me explain it to you here in this way. You have income, right? You have expenses. You have assets. And you have liabilities. So primarily, even like as we went from money management, those phases where a person says, I get my paycheck. Someone else said, I wait for my paycheck. Third person said, when I get my paycheck. So basically, there's one source of income coming in. There's just one source, one paycheck. Okay. One paycheck that's coming in. What are their expenses? That whole list that we went through where, like we were talking with Yusuf and other people, that list of expenses, as long as it gets, and even there's things that are not even there on the list, right? How many expenses were there? Let's say in a month you're dealing with 50 different expenses. Okay, 50 expenses. 50 expenses. And then you have assets and liabilities. Who doesn't understand these terms? Liabilities? Anybody not understand what liability is? Okay, liability in general, just summarizing it, liability is something that will, by virtue of you having it every year, it will take money out of your pocket, right? Sorry, not every year. Just consistently it will take money out of your pocket. A great example of a liability is something like owning a cat, right? You own a cat. The fact that you own the cat is a decision to, you own a cat, right? Do you own a cat? No. Okay. Having like a cat, you have cat food, kitty litter, you got shots at the veterinarian, and every month, right, that's an expense. Just by having the cat, it's like every month it's like a liability, okay? A student loan, money's always going out. There was one brother once, I was doing this activity with him, and when I, went through the list of all of his expenses, he actually should have a lot of money left over. And he's like, oh, I forgot one thing. $150,000 like loans, my parents' loans, stuff like that. Okay, great. That's another $4,000 per month, right? So the loans are, by virtue of having the loan, you just like sucked into that. A mortgage, for example, is in a liability category. So let's suppose house, you have cat, you have loans, you have car lease, Things like that, liabilities. And as you can see, these are things that the society pushes towards, right? So they can't get people to pay in cash anymore, so because people don't have cash. So they say, hey, here comes the credit card company and says, you don't have to pay. My friend, the credit card company, will pay. And you just take it home. You just pick what car you want and you just go home and me and the credit card company, I'll take the money from the credit card company. And then the credit card company comes into the picture. Now you're stuck with all these liabilities. These liabilities, and you've got 50 expenses. Now, let's say the house payment is, X amount, house payment, rent, whatever it is. How much do house payments? 2,600? Oh, that's crazy. In New Jersey. Okay, so let's suppose $2,600. The cat costs, how much does the cat cost, Ahmed? $50 per month? Okay, $50 per month. Loans, person's paying back debts. How much is that per month? What's that? Okay, so let's say $400. Car lease, let's suppose another $500. Did you see how quickly this added up? This is in addition to the 50 expenses. And now the person's being eaten alive. We were talking about a person makes $100, they spend $130. Now you're like, no, they spend more like $170, right? And they just keep getting more. And then the gas bills start coming in and so on and so forth. What about the assets? An asset, like the opposite of a liability, by virtue of you owning it, it consistently brings more money into you. Someone have an example of an asset? Yes? Cash. Cash is an asset, yeah. So cash. How about sheep? Anybody ever own some sheep? Yeah? Camels? Have you owned camels? Okay, are they an asset? Okay, so you have, how many sheep did you have at the highest point? Yeah. Okay, that's when you were starting. Okay, that's awesome. 140 sheep. Why do we say it's an asset? Because when you have the sheep, basically they give birth to other sheep. You're like, it's awesome, right? Here's more money, here's more dinner, here's more milk, like that. And then the sheep, they just start procreating. So you give them a little food, and now, mashallah, they start procreating, and you're dealing. Some other examples of this, a person who has a couple of books that they've published, right, that are being sold on the market. So these are assets. A person has written books. They have like 6 books. And these books, this book is at this company, this is at that company, this one's sold here, this one's sold there. So basically they're sitting back and these books are making, a lot or a little income. There's no more effort from their part. The books are making money for them. Another example of this is someone having like an internet business and they sell things online. So they put up their they're selling hijabs or something like that. Some internet businesses you'd actually have put in effort, but let's suppose they were selling digital products completely. So they sold, for example, MP3 downloads, or they sold, for example, ebooks that were downloaded. Basically, the person purchases and the whole system does the whole checkout process. So the person's sleeping, they wake up in the morning, they made 3-4 sales during the night, and no effort was needed on their part. So it's by virtue of them owning it brings money into their pocket. Okay? Now, as you look over this, the 4 categories, where does zakah come from? Where does zakah come from? Yes, brother. It comes from assets. Does zakah come from income? So someone will say, how much zakah do I pay on my paycheck? What's the answer? 0. That's right. You pay 0 on your paycheck. How much zakah do I pay on my house? 0. Right? Because it's not an asset. You don't pay anything. How much do I pay zakah on my car? 0. How much do I pay zakah on my gas or heating or something like that? 0. How much do I pay on my sheep? 2.5%. That's why I have to take the zakah class, because it's not 2.5%. No, it's not. So you have 40 sheep. Out of 40 sheep, you'd pay 1 in zakah. Okay? So and then the cash is cash that's been sitting around for 1 year. It is an asset, right? It's not the paycheck that you pay zakah on, but it's money that's been sitting around for like 1 year. Then you pay cash, basically because it's like an equivalent to gold, or it's supposed to be an equivalent to gold. The books, a person has the books, they're making income from it, they're paying zakah on the money that they're receiving from the books. An internet business, again, they're receiving money that they're getting from the internet business. It stays for them with 1 year, and then they pay zakah on that. All right? This is where zakah is paid. Why don't you write down right now what your assets are? What are your assets? Yes. Yeah, stocks. Stocks would count as well. Stocks. What are your assets? And you might want to write next to, your assets, how much monthly are you getting from these assets? If you have a question, if something's an asset or not, you just raise your hand. Ask. I know for many people, there's nothing in this category. That's just going through the activity. You just kind of think, what do I have? What do I have? Nothing. That's right. It's not necessarily an asset. Maybe if you own it, I don't know if you could sell it, but see, even the equipment. So the question of equipment of the company, is that an asset? The answer is, do you pay zakah on it? No. So the equipment that you have, you use it. It's it's something for your wear. You're not really making money off of it. It's just like an equipment, you paid for it, and you need it for your business. Yes, that's right. So gold, jewelry is an asset. Women tell their husbands, "Oh, this is a great asset. You should invest in gold. Buy me this and buy me that," stuff like that. And it is. And right now, all the Chinese are buying up all the gold. Now's the time to buy because the dollar's going down. Somebody else? Assets? Okay. So let me explain now that zakah is every year. If you were to pay zakah is like 2.5%, or out of 40 sheep, 1 sheep, and so on, right? Depending on what you have, agriculture. If you paid zakah every year, it would come from an asset. Asset, by its nature, is going to be more money. So technically, the more zakah that you pay, the more wealthier you will become. Because zakah doesn't decrease wealth, and this is understood because it's not coming from your income, not coming out of expenses, it's coming from your assets. In fact, for most people, they are, in our culture, you're talking about North America, US, Canada, they should be recipients of zakah because they're in debt. They have no money really sitting around in the assets for most people. They're just all students, basically, recipients of zakah. They're poor, needy, and of them is al-gharimin, right? Those who are in debt. And who is not in debt these days? If you're not holding back, right, that basically the whole society, and in fact, the Muslims then came and then said, let's find Muslim ways of getting people in debt, right? And then, change a little bit in the contract and then put that on top of everything. And then the whole society becomes like a debt society. And who focuses on the assets? And this is where zakah is paid from. If you look at the 5 pillars of Islam, right, you have aqidah, tawheed, salah, zakah, Sawm, and hajj, right? Do people know how to pray? For the most part, right? Some, do they know how to fast? Okay. Do they know how to perform hajj? Those who go for hajj? Well, they get some hajj, guys. What about zakah? I would say out of these pillars of Islam, zakah, basically when zakah, people come in Ramadan and they just throw some money out. That's as complicated as it gets. There's a fundraiser in Ramadan. Here, I'm giving my zakah, as most people like to, take their zakah out in Ramadan. They don't even know how much they have to pay. And they don't comprehend what's going on. Most people just, hear Bismillah, may Allah forgive. And throw some money out. And they're usually paying more than they need, and they probably don't even have to pay zakah because of the debts that they have and the situation, the fact that they have no assets. If you look at the example of Uthman radiallahu anhu. How is he able to give so much money and yet come a little while later and all that money has been made up again? It comes from just the virtue of a person having assets, right? So the person can spend from this category and then come again, a time later, and they have their money back, and the money just keeps piling up again and again and again. So you want to focus on this category. When we said that the majority of the people focus on the employee category, right? 90%, 95% are in the employee. It's the one paycheck, zero assets. The whole life is focused on liabilities, the house, the car, everything like that, and the expenses that they have, and they get eaten alive with expenses they're not even looking they're not even seeing. The eating out expenses, the water bottle expenses, the chocolate bars and the counters, all of those things start piling up and they get eaten alive by that. What you need to start focusing on is this asset column, inshallah ta'ala. There are 3 types of assets. Basically, these are like fundamental type of assets. Number 1, as they say, is real estate. Number 2 is business. Number 3 is paper. Okay, so let's go through it. And I looked over these 3. I took, the information, and I'll give you my own experience with them. When it came to real estate, I found that, when people get involved in real estate, obviously there's a lot of riba involved. Or there's a big property and you have to take out a mortgage or get into debt. The non-Muslims will start calling that good debt. It's called riba, whatever, good or bad, it's riba, and you can't be involved in that. So the house prices, if you have the money for it, alhamdulillah, and it could be a great investment. For anybody invest in real estate? Real estate investors? How many properties do you have? 4? Alhamdulillah, congratulations. I was listening to a real estate investor, and he was like, if you're going to get anything less than I think 15 properties, he's like, don't even bother. And then when you look at it, when you're actually calculating all the expenses that are coming from a real estate property, you might actually be in the negative, right? Because you just kind of oh, you know what? When people start calculating it, they'll start saying, okay, I purchased the house, payment for whatever, and then when people start bringing the money in, you have to pay the property taxes and different things like that, and you start making, I don't know, $200, $300 per house per month. But then there are other expenses that come into the mix, and it actually might turn upside down where you're actually in a negative. But so even if let's suppose you made $200, $300, you got 4 properties. How much money extra is that per month? 200 times 4, you're looking like $800 per month, right? And that's 4 properties with all the headaches and things like that, the maintenance people, different things, so on. Anyhow, so the real estate, there's a lot of properties involved. There's lawyers, there's contracts, and all of these things built up. And then when I looked at it, I felt that there's something better than that. Then I looked at the business. Business basically is where you take a business and you start buying and selling businesses as investment. And I think that might be above everybody's head, buying out businesses, and so on. So we're not doing that anytime soon. Anybody buying and selling businesses? Okay. What about the paper? And this is usually what people invest in, and that is paper stock. Like you're talking about stocks, bonds. A lot of them are riba based. So we're talking about a stock. In an ideal situation, a stock, an investment in a stock. Here's the problem with the stocks. A stock company, if in an ideal situation, let's suppose it was a halal business, right? They sold diapers, right? They sold nappies. And these diapers that they sold, it was by a Muslim company who took no riba and lends out no money, and you invested as a partner in this company, and then, you start sharing in the profits. That's like an ideal situation. That doesn't happen in the real stock market world. The real stock market world is you have companies, even if they're selling a halal product, such as oil, they're making money out of interest, and it's part of their profits. And so the scholars will say that, when a company is making interest profit, and your money, even though the situation of being a partner in a business is fine, but the companies that you're joining with are dealing with riba. They're not Muslim and they're trying to stay away from it. They don't care about stuff like that, and you become a partner. So no matter what, your money will be mixed with haram. There will be haram money slipping through with your own money. Okay? And also when you see the stock market, I know some people are familiar with the stock market here, you'll see people basically investing, as they say, on speculation. Speculation, you're not really making money off of, a growth of a company. It's the rise and fall. These are usually the day traders, the IT guys who during their break check their email and then check the stock market, like a gambling thing. And so they go onto the stock market website and it's like, did it go up? Let me sell today. Did it go down? Let me sell tomorrow. Right? They're just looking for little rises and falls. And typically people like that will lose. Right? So they spend all this amount of time. And in my experience with the stock market was, I made money on it, but once you spend all this time, at the end you come out with a negative. So what happened to all that time? All that time spent. And by the way, remember back when I said employee, self-employed, business owner, and investor? A lot of people who are investing in the stock market, they think they're an investor. Just like some people, when I said self-employed, they think they're a business owner, but they're actually self-employed. Meaning that, if they left, the whole company collapses. They don't own a system. They're basically just the self-employed person, right? If they left, everything collapses. So it's not a business system. It's basically a self-employed, a glorified self-employed. Same thing with investor. A lot of people think that they're an investor, but really they're just an employee who has to pay to go to work. Because they spend hours and hours every day thinking that they're an investor, when in reality, they've just spent like 4 hours in the day focused and spending all their energy, and at the end of the day, they lost money. It would be better if they just worked at a convenience store and just got paid $5, $10 an hour. They would come out with a positive. It's better for them that way. So they're not an investor. The investor is someone who basically can set it and forget it. They've invested their money. Obviously, they put some intelligence into it. They check up with it and so on and so forth. But their life isn't, spent on these investments. Otherwise, they're back into the employee category. And now their life, basically, is it beneficial for them to do that? No. It's just moving money around. What's beneficial? Is it fun? Yeah, it could be fun. And it's profitable sometimes. Okay. I would like to introduce you to a fourth category. So all the above, they didn't interest me. None of them really worked. And I did invest in the paper and the real estate, like I said, is like riba. Nobody's really buying and selling businesses and stuff like that. So along comes a fourth category. I read this in a book. Like there has to be some other way. This is basically, remember when I said there's like the fundamentals, but question the fundamentals? Someone will say, oh, these are the ways of the ways of investing. And I said, there's got to be another way. And here's the fourth way. Automated internet business. Okay, so now and the key word there is automated as well. Obviously, if it's not automated, if it's manual, then you're just like an employee. But let's compare a stock versus an ebook. You own a stock or you own an ebook. Does anybody own stocks here? Stock owners? Okay. If you've owned a stock, let's look at the effort involved. So the stock, in order to purchase a stock, how much effort is involved? You have to research the companies. There's hundreds of companies. You got look at the fundamentals, look at their charts and stuff like that. So there's a lot of time involved before you purchase the stock. If you don't spend the time, basically you're just guessing, and you know what? You can make a mistake on that. How much time is spent on writing an ebook? How quickly can you write an ebook? Yeah, you can write it in a weekend, right? So you basically, over the weekend, you've written the ebook. By Monday, you've published it and you've uploaded it, okay? And after you've uploaded it, the time required is basically set it and forget it. If you have a proper system, you've uploaded it, you put it up on the internet, and now, there's a PayPal link or something like that. Now it's set. Someone can pass by at any time. They're passing through your website and they start purchasing your book. Okay? And I'm giving you the example of an ebook that actually doesn't sell that well. Like forget the really good ebooks, just a normal ebook. Okay, so with regards to time, the stock will take time. Every day you're checking up on it. How's the stock going? These are usually the short-term investors, right? The stock, you're checking up on it again and again and again. The ebook, you basically uploaded it, and now you just step back, and during the night, you start making money. How about from the issue of benefiting people? The issue of benefiting people. Does the stock benefit anybody? It benefits nobody. It's you're making money. That's true. You might be. I'm talking about. Are you benefiting human beings? Okay, we're not just hold on. In general, you're not benefiting a human being. That's what I said. It's speculation. A person thinks, oh, you know what, some news story is going to come out. You put money into the stock goes up. No human beings really receiving any benefit from it. Yes, maybe eventually a company might, people, their jobs, they maintain their job, something down the line. But in general, it's just the speculation. It's different when you're investing in a stock with an actual business. Someone has a Muslim business and they want to open a convenience store, open up, a jilbab store in their community, and you give them $10,000. Is that investment helping and benefiting someone? The answer is yes. But in general, on the stock market, you're just putting money in, it's going through millions, and it's not really benefiting someone. Does an ebook benefit someone? Absolutely. Whoever buys it is reading it and taking information from it and benefiting from it. Okay? So benefiting people, you see there's a big difference in the ebook. How about the real test here is with regards to money? With regards to money. Let's suppose you've invested $2,000 in a stock. And you've invested how much in the ebook? Nothing. It's a digital product. It's just your time. Your time. You actually didn't spend anything. And it cost $0. You did it over the weekend while everybody else was out eating at, shawarma restaurant like that. You spent your time. You wrote up an ebook. You're benefiting people and so on. Now, as time goes by, once you launch your ebook, how much money will you make? Let's suppose you sold it for $20 and 10 people bought your book. Like it was the biggest loser book in the world. Only 10 people bought your book at $20 per person. How much money did you make? $200. Your stock. What's the best case scenario with your stock? That you gain 10% on your stock. Short-term investor, they'll sell, right? 10%. 10% is $200. That's the best thing that could possibly happen to you. That you made $200 on the stock. I'm telling you, it's impossible. It doesn't happen like that. As soon as you buy your stock, as soon as you do that, it goes into the red, just like I put it in the red here, and it goes down by 0.5% or it goes down 5%. And all of a sudden, a bad news story comes out about it, and your $2,000 is at minus $47. For example. Hold on, I'll take questions afterwards, inshallah. Barakallah fiqh. Goes down $47. Now you're all fretting and stuff like that. So the ebook, it was a loser book, only sold 10 ebooks, so you got $200. As time goes by, losing anything by this ebook being up on the internet? Are you spending any time on it? It's just there, right? What about this stock? How often do you check on it? You could technically be checking on it every day. And if you don't check on it, you'll be eaten alive by this stock. It'll just get worse and worse and worse. At some point, it might actually go up, but you'll be busy someday. You could set it to sell automatically, but you know what? It got sold, whatever it is. In the end of the day, they'll say once you start losing 10%, sell it. So this stock, as some of them are going up, some of them going down, you're at a minus 200, and you're like, I had enough. I've got to sell it. I'll sell it by tonight when I return home. By the time you get home, it's at minus 290. And then you're like, oh my God, should I sell it now? Should I wait till tomorrow until it sells? So you say, let me just wait till tomorrow. It'll go up a little bit. By tomorrow, it's at minus 375. These are the lessons that you learned in the stock market, right? Obviously, the best case scenario is that it would go up 10%. You'd make $200. But once it goes up, imagine that it did go up 10%. You know what will happen to you at that point? You'll get greedy. You're like, what if it goes up? What if it's Google, the next Google? And I stop at 10%, I'll be the biggest loser. So you make 10%, you're like, yes, let me hold on to it. So in the stock market, they say sell high and buy low. Isn't the stock market low right now? Is anybody buying? Nobody's buying, right? It's just some smart people, very few people, but stock market is very cheap. But nobody buys. What they buy, when they buy, is when everybody else is talking about the stock. When basically all the hype is about the stock, Nortel, or back in the day, and the stock market's really high. That's when people start pumping their money in because of the greed. And then once they start losing money, they get freaked out and then they sell. So they're just going in, they're buying high, selling low, buying high, selling low. They do the exact opposite of what they're supposed to be doing. In the end, no matter what, they come out with a negative. And even if they did make 10% on this stock, from their other stocks, they would be making like a negative as well. They'd be making a negative, and altogether, all of their stocks, if they have like 5, 10 stocks, they're in a negative. But with the ebook, try putting in 5 ebooks like that. So for 1 month, you just every weekend you did an ebook. Ebook, 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 ebook. You got 4 ebooks. Now you're dealing with how much money? Only 10 people bought it. $800 per month, which is exactly like what you're doing with your real estate. Correct? Are you making more than that? And then selling it, flipping it? Okay, renting it. Okay, so if you had 4 ebooks, you'd start making $800 per month just selling it at 10, selling to 10 people. And you lose nothing after that. And it doesn't cost anything, just put it up on the internet, whoever comes along and starts buying it, right? So the idea is automated internet business, and as we move forward, inshallah ta'ala, this is when I did my mentorship on the internet and stuff like that, and all these years that I've spent, I've been focusing on this category. And I found in comparison to a lot of these other categories, for our Muslim community, they can immediately get involved in the investing. They can immediately get involved in the investing, start making some money online, inshallah ta'ala, and start benefiting from that. And I'll show you how to do that. Questions? Yes? There's lots of alternatives. Things like, what's your background? IT. So a person in IT, if you had information, right, to sell, usually information is typically like the digital product, right? So if you had information to sell, it could be things like, how to set up your computer, for example. Isn't that guy that, teaches computer? There's the professor teaches computer. He has like infomercials. What's it called? So he has like, basically he's created like these videos for the computer and shows people how to use their computer. He does infomercials. I'm sure he's like a multimillionaire, that guy. Professor teaches computer, teaches, Microsoft Word, teaches even the simplistic of things, right? And a lot of times you'll see the fundamentals. The majority of people need help with the fundamentals, and then you can get the advanced stuff. But when you start getting advanced, your market gets smaller and smaller, but it depends on what you want to do. I just gave the example of an ebook. You can sell other people's ebooks, right? So let's suppose you start building up a mailing list, and then you take someone else and you tell someone, I'll sell your ebook, and they might even give you 50% of what they're selling. So an ebook sells for $20, they'll give you $10, and you're not even selling anything. You start selling someone else's ebook, which is called affiliate marketing, where you don't even need a product. Other questions? Yes? You're getting what? Okay. So if a person's investing in stock and they're making good money from it, there's a problem. And that good money has haram money mixed with it. Okay, so it's been my experience with the stock market, right? That there will be haram money invested, haram money that's mixed into the mixture, right? And scholars will say that you have to research the company that you're investing in, see how much they make from riba. And some scholars then gave a percentage. Is that percentage, above a certain number or below it? Some people said it has to be 2% riba and nothing more. Some said 5% riba or nothing more. If it's more than that, like it's haram company, you'd step away. So the first thing is how much money are they making from riba? And then after you know how much money they're making from riba, then you take that percentage out of your money. Right? Should be like 5% or whatever it is. And that is if it's like a halal company. How would you know that? You wouldn't. That's basically why I said, like, how do you know these things? Who researches these companies? And the companies change all the time. So a halal company, 2 months later, will become a haram company. And they start to deal with it. So it has nothing to do with the products. Even products is one thing. Like, alhamdulillah, not selling alcohol or you're not going to invest with that, of course. But we're talking about, even I gave an example, like if they're a phone company or if they're an oil company, they're still dealing in haram. Yeah. Yes. You can find it out. Yeah. How much does it come up to then? I know. Even when I said $0, it's not $0. You have to pay for example, a place to put the book ebook, right? So that could cost, for example, $5 a month. Yeah, you could do it for $0. You could, even if you wanted to do it for $0, you could find software that you could do it. But even if you did go the paid route, you might look at, let's suppose like a shopping cart. PayPal is free, and you can digitally deliver through PayPal. And the autoresponder might be how much, like $150 per year or something like that. And hosting it on a website might cost another, like, say, $10 per month. So say like $100 per year. That's at the lower. Once you start making money, if you want to invest in better services after that, you can do that. Somebody else? All right, moving along, inshallah. Do you guys just want to stand up, stretch your legs? All right, have a seat when you're ready. What if someone has 10,000 RSP? Um, so the question is about RSP. I'm not really answering like the fiqh questions and going down that route, but I'm just saying, like, for my own personal preference, I wouldn't invest. When I looked at RSP, I was like, I looked into the stock market, and I was looking for like a fund or something that, and their companies. As you go through each company, basically, once your money's in there, you have no control over it. And I told like the banker, I'm like, I don't want anything haram. Yes, and he laughed at me. You look through the list and try to find like a fund or RSP or something that doesn't have banks in there, doesn't have like haram things, right? These are like companies. We were talking just like halal products that have haram things involved, and these funds that you're speaking about are actually like a mixture of even haram companies, right? Which is, they're dealing with banks, they're dealing with things like that, and so the money's mixed with haram. I'm not saying all of it's haram, but there's definitely haram money involved in there. Allah alam. What would I do? I would not invest in RSP, because I think the deadline is coming up for it's today or something like that. It was Monday, and I was like, that's their life. That's not like the Muslims' life. I know a lot of Muslims will invest in it, but a lot of Muslims have mortgages and a lot of Muslims have stuff, but they don't eat haram meat. That's the main thing. As long as you don't eat haram meat, it should